Good evening. Welcome to the April 4th, 2023 meeting of the Dover School Committee, Sherborn School Committee, and the Dover-Sherborn Regional School Committee. My name is Sarah Gutierrez-Dunn, and I call this meeting to order at 6:38 p.m. We are pleased to hold this open meeting at the METCO headquarters in Boston this evening, and we are also live streaming with DSC TV. Please note that this meeting is also being recorded. Before we begin, I would like to extend our thanks to our gracious hosts this evening at the METCO program. We are so grateful to have had the opportunity to gather with some of our Boston families tonight and to have had a site visit to tour this wonderful facility. So thank you to the families, to METCO President and CEO Millie Arbaje-Thomas, and to the METCO staff for such a warm welcome. For those who are watching tonight and who are not familiar, the Metropolitan Council for Educational Opportunity, or METCO as it is commonly known, has as its mission to provide students with a strong academic foundation rich in cultural, educational, ethnic, socioeconomic, and racial diversity, and to foster the opportunity for children from Boston and from neighboring suburbs like ours to develop a deeper understanding of each other in an integrated public school setting. At Dover-Sherborn, we are so pleased to partner with METCO and proud to join with you to create an educational community that inspires, challenges, and supports all of our students as they discover and pursue their full potential. So first on our agenda this evening is community comments. We have provided a Zoom link for those who wish to make a comment, but for whom it is not possible or preferred to attend in person this evening. Please remember that community comments are an opportunity for members of the school committee to listen to members of the community. It is not a forum for answering questions or engaging in a debate. We respectfully request that you please make your comments brief, no more than 3 minutes, and that you move the discussion forward by adding new information. Please try to avoid repeating points that have already been made. Once the public comment section of the meeting has been concluded, we will move on to other business, and unsolicited comments from the community will no longer be permitted. This is standard operating procedure in the school committee meetings across our 3 school districts. Is there anyone here with us tonight or on the Zoom who would like to make a community comment? Please raise your hand if so.
Can you see me? I do.
We can hear you. Let's see.
Oh, you can hear me. Good.
There. Okay. Yeah, we can hear you and see your name.
Awesome. Okay. All right, I'll start. Good evening. Gil Murphy, 1 Town Line Road, Sherborn. I am a former school committee member, president of Positive, vice president of Pine Hill CSA, and president of FOPA. I have 3 sons who graduated from DS. The education they received was one of academic excellence and merit-based achievement. I was incredibly proud to be a part of this outstanding school system, and so were they. I was also honored to represent our community as a school committee member. After watching recently reported school committee meetings, reviewing minutes, looking at system-wide changes and proposed changes, and seeing a surprisingly large number of unanimous school committee votes, I am concerned about the direction of our schools. My 3 primary areas of concern are: 1, academic decline. The DS schools have dropped in ranking from 1 to 9, and the MCAS scores have declined as well. I understand the data used in this ranking system changes annually, which makes it an unpredictable indicator of success. However, this ranking system has always worked in this manner, and DS has managed to stay at the top. Metrics matter to most in our community, and they certainly matter in our performance evaluation of DS administrators and school committee members. Superintendent Beth McCoy in the 228 webinar cited challenge success as one of the reasons for our decline in ranking. 10 years ago, DS was the first school in the East to take part in the Challenge Success program, whose aim is to, quote, implement research-based, equity-centered strategies that improve well-being, engagement, and belonging for all K-12 students, end quote. Nowhere on the Challenge Success website are the words academics or achievement mentioned. Superintendent Beth McCoy further stated on 228 that, quote, DEI is the next step beyond challenge success, end quote. Why is no one on this committee raising concerns and asking for more analysis about the relationship of challenge success in DEI to our academic decline. Transparency and communication. I am speaking here for many parents who are afraid to express their concerns for fear of retribution. Parents and community members feel that there has been no transparency and no opportunity for open discussion with the administration or school committee regarding DEI implementation. The DEI curriculum meeting changing from in-person to a webinar is one recent example of this. And lastly, school committee bylaws. We demand honesty and integrity from our student body into this. I speak for many when I express my disappointment that this committee has not followed the same honor code, knowingly ignoring the open meeting law and not addressing this breach of governance within your ranks. Our community is increasingly divided around what is happening in the schools, and you must remember that this is happening under your watch. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Are there other community comments? All right, hearing none, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is an update from our superintendent, Beth McCoy.
So typically we end the Zoom after community comments. Are we following protocol?
As long as we're live streaming, I think that's...
We are not live streaming.
We're not live
Oh,
streaming?
we're not. I thought we were. Okay, sorry.
Oh,
We-
if we're not live streaming, we should leave it open.
Yeah, I agree.
So, okay.
Great. All right, well, thank you. It is now time for the superintendent update, which Jenny and I will share. First, I'd like to just reiterate what Sarah said, and thank you to Millie and the Medco team for hosting us tonight. It's an honor to be here and so exciting to see your new space. I'd like to thank Monique, our assistant Diane, and Denny for helping and working with Millie to make tonight possible. To our Boston families for coming out this evening to be part of this and to meet and greet our school committee members, and of course for the school committee for making the trip into Boston. This is a first time for Dover-Sherborn, and we're hoping to make it a more frequent event. So thank you, everyone. Just starting with a few school updates. There is a lot going on within our schools. I'd like to draw attention to the love of reading that has happened throughout the month of March. We always have a love of reading at the elementary level, but it really peaks during March Madness. So I'd like to thank our librarians and all of our educators for getting our kids excited about reading during the month of March. And it's certainly been an exciting time for them. A quick highlight from the middle school. In 7th grade, our students read A Long Walk to Water and do a interdisciplinary project around Latin America. And we were so lucky to have Bull Riney, who is one of the lost boys of Sudan, come and present to our 7th graders. And they were so attentive to everything he had to share about his experience and his migration to the United States. And they had such excellent questions at the end. All of our students made us really proud in the way they presented themselves and the questions that they asked to really get to know more about the experience and what they can do to help others. At the high school, I'd like to commend John Smith and the faculty for hosting a seminar day. This is an event that they have every 3 to 4 years so that every cohort of high schoolers gets it once. It's like planning a wedding in that they're inviting, this year was a record, 90 speakers to come and present on a variety of topics, anything from working in technology or medicine to travel, what it's like to be an influencer and be on social media. We had a lot of alumni come back and talk about their careers, young and old. And so it was an awesome opportunity for our kids to have voice and choice in who they got to go and listen to. We had keynotes at the beginning and the end of the day, which were fabulous, recognizing DS alums and faculty into the Distinguished Hall of Fame at the beginning of the day. And then at the end of the day, Matt Brown, who you may remember was the hockey player from Norwood, who was injured on the ice and became paralyzed. He came and spoke to our students about how attitude can overcome adversity. And so that was a super powerful message to leave the day. But it is a lot of work for the faculty to create this event for our students above and beyond their normal job. So I just want to take a minute to recognize that, as well as our Science Olympiad team, who placed first and second in the state. So congratulations to Mr. Bridger and his team for all of their hard work. They really knocked it out of the park. So our kids continue to amaze us every day. We have lots of transition meetings going on. It's April. It feels like it's going to be June any minute. And so we're transitioning 5th to 6th grade. 8th grade to 9th grade, and getting ready for our seniors to graduate. So lots of transition conversations already in the works. And on a less positive note, as you know, I sent an email to the community about the swatting that continues in our area, where we are getting, not Dover-Sherborn yet, hopefully ever, getting phone calls about potential violent acts on campus. And so we are prepared. We continue to work with Dover and Sherborn police. As you know, we've run drills throughout the school year to make sure that our students and our faculty are prepared. So please rest assured, if something happen, we will certainly react. But it's just unfortunate that our students and our teachers are interrupted in their day-to-day learning, let alone during MCAS, that we have this fear and this threat. So just wanted to keep you alert on that. Speaking of MCAS, it is time for English MCAS. Next month will be math, and then in June we'll have science for grades 5, 8, and 9. So testing all the way to the end. We have a curriculum webinar last Thursday that I'd like to highlight as part of the DEI series. It was the 4th session coming out of the equity audit presentation that gave people an opportunity to learn more about the work ahead. So as you recall, the first one was in person at the Collins Center. It was kind of a DEI 101. What is this work? Our DEI consultant, Dr. Carlos Hoyt, who is a Metco graduate, 1978, first graduating class from DS, joined us. The second one was held at the Dover Church, and it was an opportunity for an open forum of questions and answers. The third one was online, and it was an opportunity for us to share a lot of information about the potential roadmap and action steps moving forward. So lots of information packed into 90 minutes. And the last one was last Thursday, which was focused on curriculum and how we look at curriculum as a whole, and how DEI work is interwoven into that. And Assistant Superintendent Conklin will speak to that in a few minutes. As you know, it was changed from an in-person session to an online session at the request of several community members and parents who felt, one, they felt it would be a more inclusive and safe environment if we did it online, and it was more conducive to their busy work-life family balance. So we did provide it online, and we have a recording with all of the questions, all of the answers, the participant list that will go out early next week once we're able to answer the questions that we didn't get to on Thursday night. We had 87 participants at the peak, so I'm sure there'll be more following up to watch it on their own time. The presentation covered the standards, the state standards in all of the content areas, just referencing that as our backbone to what we teach within our classrooms, and then a focus on what our overall vision for the curriculum is on top of that content of how do we choose materials, what skills do we want to reinforce with our students so that we prepare them for a world that we can't even imagine is going to look like in 20 to 30 years. We had asked people to RSVP and submit questions in advance as well as concerns, so we tried to weave answers to all of those questions throughout. Kind of the big questions were, how will the curriculum change and at what grade levels? How will the changes be communicated to parents? How will students who are achieving above grade level be challenged, and those who need a bit of support be supported as we move forward? And how do we talk about diverse identities in age-appropriate ways? So we had opportunities to speak to all of those questions. People expressed concern, so we had a sentence stem. I'm concerned that the district curriculum will, and we asked people to fill in the blank. And the two kind of themes that came up again and again are their concern that the curriculum will decline in academic rigor and quality, and then, or on the opposite side, not be direct enough in addressing the D&I issues facing our community and world today. So we saw both spectrums. So we went over some longstanding examples of DEI that's already integrated into the curriculum K to 12. We talked about the elementary social studies curriculum and how it needs a reboot coming out of the pandemic with the new frameworks and what that looks like. We talked a little bit about social emotional learning and how that's integrated into morning meeting and throughout the curriculum in order to make sure that our students are emotionally ready and able to learn throughout the day. And we also talked about the health curriculum in grades 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, because there was lots of concerns and questions about what is taught when in an age developmentally appropriate way. We talked about how we'll communicate this to parents. So certainly teachers and building leaders are always a resource, and you'll see highlights of the teaching and learning happening in our classrooms that come through either the pictures on balloons or the Instagram photos that come out, as well as our newsletters. Open houses and back to school nights are certainly an opportunity to get a window into what our students are learning. The course syllabi that come home and all those signatures that you have to do on the first night of school will give you an outline of all the books that the students are reading and and the kind of power standards we're looking to capture. We have a new website coming, as you all saw last meeting. And on that, we're hoping to have public-facing curriculum maps that will be parent-friendly, community-friendly language about what the students are learning in each discipline and each grade level. We are going to be sharing a frequently read book list that will highlight the books that are kind of standard K-12 across the curriculum. Obviously, there's some changes that happen from time to time based on world events or things that might happen in the classroom, but we'll certainly share those that are standard. And Denny is hoping to host, with the help of our building leaders next year, some more curriculum information sessions for parents as we move forward with units of study in literacy, as we move forward with potentially a new math curriculum, etc. Overall, during the session, we had the live presentation that was one of us speaking, as well as a live Q&A going on the side, and we have all people, the leaders, jumping in to answer questions as we went. We were able to answer over 100 questions live during the session, and those that weren't answered, Denny, thankfully, is still working on as we speak. So again, we'll be sending out all that information. An MIAA workshop I wanted to just draw your attention to. So the MIAA, which you know oversees all of our sports, our high school sports throughout the state, is working with the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents and the Northeastern University Center for the Study of Sports and Society to really address hate that happens in high school athletics, whether it's something that happens in the locker room, whether it's the chanting that you're hearing from students on the sidelines, from parents on the sidelines, the way that people are interacting with referees. So I got to spend two really informative days with John Smith, our high school principal, and Emily Sullivan, our athletic director at Stonehill College, working with this group from Northeastern. And they were fabulous presenters. I would love to have them come and work with our coaches, work with our teachers, work with our kids. They're always on call should there ever be an incident in Dover-Sherborn, but they also do proactive training for students around sportsmanship and conduct. So fabulous resource that we need to put in our pocket. Budget hearings, aside from town meeting, are over. So having been first time in the seat as superintendent and sat next to Dawn for all of these meetings, I just want to thank Dawn Fattori for all of her hard work and for all of you showing up to evening meetings, some at 6 p.m., some at 9:30 p.m., some on Saturday mornings. It's certainly a marathon, but thank you for getting us to this point, and fingers crossed everything will move through the town meetings. So well done. Job fairs, again, thank you to Assistant Superintendent Conklin. He and Monique Marshall-Beal and Allison Gullingsrud represented us at the Cambridge Street Upper School on March 18th for the Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity in Education Job Fair. You'll see their photo right there. So it's our first year where we actually have a tablecloth and giveaways and a sign. So thank you, Denny, for making us look good. And got to meet lots of potential candidates and collect resumes. And we have another one coming up that Denny and I will be going to over April break at BU with the Massachusetts Educators for Recruiting Consortium. So we're doing our best to find the best and brightest and most qualified teachers to come K-12 across all disciplines and areas. So fingers crossed. Just a quick update about human resources. I know it's been an ongoing conversation about the need for an HR director. In Dover-Sherborn, we've been working with Dr. Tom Campbell, from retired HR director from Needham. He has a report that I have shared, and he will be zooming into our April 26th conversation, as at that point we'll be posting the position and talking about steps forward. So feel free to ask him any questions at that point, something to look forward to. And lastly, before I turn the mic over to Denny, I just want to say, having recently reflected on my first year as a superintendent, provided some evidence and artifacts to all of you to consider. It's different sitting in this seat. I'm not saying it's better, it's different. But I just want to acknowledge the executive team at Central Office and our building leaders and our teachers, because I have seen them work from a different vantage point this year than I have in the past. And the difficult situations that they deal with every day, the number of evenings that they put in, the weekends, whether it's a planned event or an emergency, our leadership team works so hard. And I think I hope that people recognize that and take an opportunity once in a while to drop an email, drop a thank you note, drop off some candy, because they really, really work hard, and I know they're really, really tired. So thank you for doing what you do. All right, so that's you. You're next.
Do people have questions for you before we?
Good question. Any questions? Take it away.
All right. So I have the, Oh no, okay. Oh, Lord. have the assistant superintendent update. So I'll start with the school and classroom visits. So, il y a beaucoup de trucs à faire sur la classe français. Nous allions à la MFA. So that was what I got down for this presentation alone. But one of my favorite things is I got to go on the French field trip to the MFA a couple weeks ago as a chaperone, and we looked at French art. And it was just some great time to spend with our wonderful teaching staff as well as with our students, getting to chat with them and hear about what their day-to-day is like. So that was definitely a highlight of my past couple weeks. I'm going to be on the Romeo and Juliet field trip in another couple weeks. So I love these opportunities to be with our students, to be with our staff, to just talk to them and hear what their thoughts and what their views are. So that's been a huge joy to have in my life. I've continued on with my learning walks. The one most recently in my head is with our STEM teachers and our technology teachers. So I got to see a lot of classes at the middle school and high school. So we had students working in 7th grade on hovercrafts. I saw some coding that was going on as students were designing a game to make ice cream cones, and they were using code in order to do that. I saw a TV production class making trailers for movies. So there's just a lot of rich activities that are going on. So it's a pleasure to get to go on those learning walks and continuing on with those learning walks as the rest of April moves on. And you can see the picture there. That's a picture from our French field trip. And then that's a picture from our speaker, Bull Rennie, who Superintendent McCoy had mentioned as well. What I really want to focus in on are two things. One is the curriculum audit, and one is on our Stop It, Name It, Claim It PD. So in terms of the curriculum audit, this is a slide that we showed at our webinar last Thursday, and it outlines all the major initiatives and things that Dover-Sherborn has been participating in. Portrait of a Graduate, Challenge of Success, our multi-tiered systems of support, social emotional learning, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and of course, most of what we do is rooted in research, and how these things all work together. And sometimes it feels like these things are all separate initiatives, that social emotional learning is one thing, that diversity, equity, and inclusion is another, but all of these things are interacting together. So what we did when we were thinking about the curriculum is we took all of these things in mind and we pulled out these 11 big themes that we said were our key values in terms of curriculum and what we want to see in terms of a high quality curriculum. So you can see the 11 different components that have been scattered around this puzzle piece, from agency and action to student engagement to student voice. And we use this as the foundation for our curriculum audit. So some of you may recall that part of the curriculum audit came from the equity audit, and the equity audit made a recommendation that we do a curriculum audit to take stock of where we're seeing various issues around diverse identities in the curriculum, where we're allowing students to have those windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors into other people's experiences and their own experiences. So the curriculum audit was rooted a little bit in the equity audit and the recommendations from the equity audit. It's also rooted in DESE mandates and in Massachusetts general law, which says that teachers need to constantly be reviewing curriculums specifically for any types of stereotypes that might exist with groups or individuals. DESE has a whole website on culturally responsive teaching and the mandates that are there. We've covered these in our previous webinars. Just the research on teaching, we know, suggests making sure that we are going through and looking at our curriculum from different vantage points. And finally, it's something that I know as a district we believe in as well. We believe in our curriculum review cycles. We believe in keeping our teaching and learning very innovative. Our Portrait of a Graduate has kind of put a stake in the ground about the things that our district values. So the curriculum audit has been rooted in all of these things. Next couple slides I'll just go through very quickly. This gives a little bit of background from the NYU equity audit and the recommendations and the findings that it made in surveying about whether the curriculum was culturally responsive, inclusive, and respectful. So it pointed out some areas that Dover-Sherborn is doing very well, as well as some areas of growth. And it laid out some recommendations in terms of the curriculum audit, that it should be a collaborative, flexible, district-wide expectation, that we should try to look at the strengths of our existing curriculum, but making sure that all students will have equitable access to various learning activities, that we include student family input, and and that we also provide professional development so that teachers can continue their own growth in their learning about concepts related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but more importantly, to have opportunities to collaborate with each other on curriculum and to learn about some of the best practices and research going on in our various content areas. This just lays out a little bit more detail on the DESE mandates and the laws surrounding curriculum review. The research, which we've talked about before in terms of the importance of students seeing themselves in the curriculum and being able to see other people's experiences in the curriculum. And then thinking about what is actually going on with the curriculum audit itself. So the categories that our teachers and staff are using in order to audit the curriculum and take stock of where we are, coincidentally, fall around these 11 different categories. That fall outside this puzzle piece. So we're asking our teachers to think about equity, to think about our curriculum from these 11 different vantage points, because they've been shown to be components of a high quality curriculum. Our timeline for this work is this past year, we worked on putting together this curriculum audit tool. There are a bunch of tools that exist out there. There was one recommended by NYU. There are lots of organizations that have curriculum audit tools. And what we ended up doing is taking a bunch of the different ones and taking the best pieces of them and what felt best for our teachers and staff in our district. And we kind of created our own curriculum audit tool using a lot of those components. We worked with the elementary PLC leaders, our middle school curriculum leaders, and our high school department heads to train them in this tool. They got to practice using the tool and have discussion about it. And this year in their grade level team meetings and in their department meetings, they've been working to take pieces of their curriculum and to use this tool and look for strengths and gaps in their existing curriculum. So the goal by the end of this year is for each grade and each department to have about 4 to 5 lessons that they've gone through with this tool. And they're going to submit to me a little report back on what they found so far in the work they've done on the curriculum audit, short-term and long-term next steps, so ways that as a district we can support them. Curriculum materials they might be looking into, other things that we can do to support in terms of professional development. Over the summer, we will continue to think what happens next in this curriculum audit process and look for places in the curriculum throughout the year to leverage this audit tool in. So for some groups of teachers, that might be looking at their major projects that they do all throughout the year and looking through those 11 categories and seeing how they're manifested in the curriculum. For some teachers, that might be focusing in on one specific unit and going in really deep with each of those 11 components and thinking about how they meet those various standards and things that we've laid out. So we're going to be using that all throughout next year. And then we're going to be thinking at the end of next year about how we can go through and look at our overall curriculum maps and our scope and sequence and make sure that we're seeing those 11 elements of quality curriculum throughout our scope and sequence and throughout our curriculum maps. The goal through all of this is to not necessarily audit every single lesson in the curriculum because it's tedious and I would never put our teachers through that. But to hopefully in the future have our teachers be using the curriculum audit tool in those 11 categories as a planning tool so that we're not going backwards and saying how do our lessons meet all of these things, but instead how can we be building these things proactively into our lessons. I will say from my experiences this year with our groups of teachers, one of the best things that's come out of this that is kind of hard to quantify is the discussions that teachers have had. Some of the teachers have said that this is the first time before they've taught a unit they've actually gotten to sit down and think about it in these 11 different ways. Teachers have said that they didn't realize that there were gaps in their curriculum. They want to rethink some things. Some teachers have said, well, I didn't really give an opportunity in this whole unit for students to have any choice. And now I understand after stepping back and using this curriculum audit tool that I want to give my students a choice in the way that they show their understanding of material. So those conversations have really been wonderful, and teachers have been reflective of their practice, and I really think that has been the best thing that really has come out of it this year. In addition to that, we want to continue to resume our curriculum review cycles, which I know were paused a little bit during COVID, and we also want to be making sure that we are measuring these curriculum changes by thinking about how students are performing in terms of DESE skills, in terms of portrait of graduate skills. So any change that we make in our curriculum, we're actually following up and seeing its effectiveness and the impact that it's having on our students. Again, I won't read through this. This was just some teacher feedback on the curriculum audit process. The first quote just says, "This process is feeling like true best practice. Yay." We were using critical thinking while reviewing the teaching tool. We're rethinking how we are currently teaching and already revising. The team is bubbling with ideas on how we would beef up various categories to support a single lesson. More importantly, creating excitement within our grade level moving forward. The tool has already proven to be eye-opening. So that's kind of shown some of the excitement and some of the ways that this has really brought us back to some critical conversations about curriculum and about pedagogy. There have been some questions about the curriculum audit tool. One person commented this requires a lot of hard, in-depth thinking. There's the worry of, will we have to do this with every unit, with every lesson? A lot of people are saying, and this is a common concern, that they want to do this, they just need time. And our teachers' schedules, as Superintendent McCoy said, are very, very busy. They're working really hard. So how can we create time in teachers' days, build that time into the schedule that they can continue to work on this? So that's a little piece of the teacher feedback we've gotten on it. This just gives an example of a grade level that had completed the audit tool. So you can see all those categories. The 11 categories are in the first column. So this just shows representation, asset-based perspectives, and equitable access points. Teachers find out how much evidence they see in their unit or their lesson of those things, and they comment on the strengths that they see within their unit or lesson and possible places where they can continue to increase some of the equity and to continue to strengthen their curriculum. So you can see that this group focused on the units of study unit on science fiction books and fantasy books. They found a lot of strengths in connecting the books that students were reading to students' lives, it being a very high interest topic for students. But at the same time, one of the gaps they found is trying to find some more diverse main characters for some of these books, give some students some additional choice in the books that they're reading as part of this unit. So that just gives you a little bit of what the teachers are working on and what they're completing. So that's the curriculum audit. Last thing I'll talk about is our Stop It, Name It, Claim It, and this is kind of another result of the equity audit and the suggestion that as a district we have a tool that teachers can use when they hear any incidents of hate speech or biased speech, that we have a common language or a common methodology that we can use as a district so we can intervene in the moment. A lot of our teachers are saying, I want to say something if I hear an insensitive comment, but I don't know how to do that if I'm in the middle of teaching a lesson, or if I'm in the hallway and I don't know who the student is, what do I do in that situation? So we had a PD on, I'm blanking on the date, but it was a couple weeks ago, where we went through the Stop It, Name It, Claim It tool. So the first step of it being stop it, so just ending whatever comment you hear, saying that it needs to end in the moment. And if that's all that happens, that's a good piece of it. But the next few things beyond it are to name it, so to say what the comment is. So to say things, for example, like that comment was mean, or that was harassment, or that was disrespectful, or that wasn't a joke. And then the claim it piece is to talk about what the impact of that comment could be. So to, for example, say, I need you to stop saying that right now because that's name calling. The claiming piece would be, we don't use people's identities as put downs. So those three steps are what we kind of did with PD for the teachers. And this is the graphic organizer that myself and Allison Gullings created that we'll be sending out to teachers so they can begin to talk about this. We talk a little bit more about how this is going to roll out in terms of having students understand what this process looks like. But I want to make sure I meet building leaders and we talk that through before we think about how this might trickle down to the students. But it was really, really good PD, and people felt like we were giving them some tools to be able to respond to things that they hear in the moment. I think the best part was that we did some scenarios where we gave teachers opportunities to think about things that could happen and how they got to talk with their colleagues about how they might respond in these situations. And I think the big one for a lot of teachers was they hear something, they don't know the student, it's not a student they have in their class, so what do you do? If it's between periods at the high school and the middle school and we only have 3 minutes, am I going to insert myself now? Is this going to create a bigger problem for me? And there's not always a right or wrong way to do it, but they really stress in the PD to at least do the stop it piece, and then the follow-up piece can come in a variety of different ways. So I'm glad the teachers felt like it was productive and they got some real-world practice with how they might use that. So So that is my little update.
Thank you. Questions, either for Beth or for Denny on these updates? Colleen?
I did. I really love the Stop It, Name It, Claim It. I think that's awesome. I was looking back at the curriculum is the curriculum culturally responsive chart, and it looks like there's a real dip in the yeses when they get to middle school, and the no's increase as well. So also the I don't knows. But do we know what's happening there, or what was happening there? This is from the equity audit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's hard. I don't know if you have any comments because you've been here longer than me and know a little bit more about middle school and the culture.
So if we can go back to
I
that.
might be able to talk to it.
Oh,
since I was on the team. Do
thank
you want to
you.
go back to the
Yes.
thing? I'm a parent, but I was on the equity audit committee, whatever we were called. So let me just look at these numbers again because it's been a little while. I think the interpretation of this when we saw it was that kids, as they get older, they start to understand if that type of stuff is within the curriculum, and so when they're answering some of these questions, you can see it goes down when you go from elementary school, right, to or it goes up in the no category. I think that's where we landed with the interpretation of that. As for the teachers and parents, I don't know about that part. I think oftentimes the folks who were saying no when you desegregated the data, it was often the non-white families that were saying, like, no, we don't necessarily think that it's writing up.
Right. And maybe they were picking up on that more in middle school.
Yeah, possibly.
So I think this is an example of where we need multiple data points, right? So
Yeah.
this was one snapshot in
Right.
time, whether or not, a fourth grader knew what a curricularly responsive curriculum should look like.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of now of having the teachers, which have been trained in curriculum and instruction, looking at the materials with an audit tool to say, where are we really and where can we do better?
Okay.
But it was a starting point.
Are we allowed to make comments or can we not?
Seeing that she was on the
Yeah.
equity audit board.
Yeah, I think, given your expertise from the audit, you're welcome to.
Well, I wanted to, I'm like so impressed with how much has been done in 6 months. Like the audit took longer than the things that you've instituted and put in there. And so the Stop It, Name It, Claim It, that was huge. We heard from a lot of teachers that were saying, I don't know how to respond. And you responded really well and gave them like a really simple tool to use. And I think the curriculum audit, I just kudos, like really awesome. Really, really great.
Thank you.
And if I could just say kudos as well, the equity audit tool, Denny, on one of his slides, either here or on Thursday's webinar, has all of the research that he did to pull together all of the best practices. And some of the work that we've done is actually other districts are asking if we can share it because they're so impressed with the equity audit tool as well as the DEI roadmap. So that was all thanks to Denny. And the Stop It, Name It, Claim It, we had the PD on Wednesday afternoon. I got home, made dinner, was ready to get on my laptop, and I'm like, all right, well, how are we going to do this with the kids? We should really have a infograph. Boom, in my inbox comes the infograph from Denny and Allison. I was like, all right, done, here it is. So 2 steps ahead of me.
We love doing the infographics.
I have 2 comments. One is sort of to echo Ms. Valenzuela. Comment about the Stop It, Name It, Claim It PD, because I know I've been part of the educational community here for, like 15 years, and I've heard from many, not just families, but teachers, that they literally weren't 100% aware of how to handle it when they overhear an insensitive or, racist, homophobic comment. Like, what do you do? And it sounds like such basic a thing, but just for teachers to hear that the right thing to do is to do something is really important in this community, because I think that wasn't always what people thought, and there was some level of fear that if you stopped and, called out or whatever, you want to use it, students that the teacher or the adult might be the one who ends up in trouble. And so I think that having the PD, having it be very explicit, having everybody knows what the rules of the game are, and students hopefully will over time have some important impacts. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that I really wanted to share an appreciation for the curriculum audit tool, for all of the different ways in which it is and will be useful as we look going forward. And I know we don't respond to community comments, but when Ms. Murphy spoke earlier today, I think it's important to note that high expectations for academic learning is a big part and an important part of the curriculum audit. And I think that, I don't believe that we have, in embracing challenge success. Challenge success came out of the real data that we had many students who were, for want of, it's like on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And as a parent of one of those students who now has gone on to be a successful adult, having like a full-on fetal position, sobbing breakdown as a junior in high school, shaking because the academic pressures that she felt by well-meaning teachers who were really thought they were doing the best things, like maybe it is still real, but I think it is real to a much lesser extent. I had the gift of having, 7 years between the oldest and the youngest, and the high school in particular has changed in that teachers and faculty are aware that children are human beings and that sometimes they have 5 tests and they might need an extension. And I don't think that doing those things means that we don't have high expectations. And so I appreciate that that's part of the tool, and I want us to remember that academic achievement at all costs is how schools end up with other tragedies. Because, I've heard other folks speak at school committee meetings about communities with teen suicide and with, lots and lots of problems that happen when academic achievement is the only goal. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that this is a holistic perspective about a whole child's experience, and I just want to thank you.
Go.
I have a question. I also really appreciate what you have done with this audit and also this stop it, name it, claim it. I think one thing that really was very, when I was looking at the NIU audit, I remember that a lot of teachers and staff mentioned that they don't know how to handle some situations, and I think this is very easy to follow, and having a PD for that would be great. My question is, are we going to teach this also to our students so they can protect themselves too, and they know how to handle situations like that? Because this is simple, and even elementary school kids can learn it and use it in life, because this can happen anywhere, and sometimes an adult might not be around.
Yep, I think that is the goal, that teachers are going to use it, students are going to become familiar with hearing the different steps of stop it, name it, claim it. And I think that we eventually do want to roll this out with all of our students so that they can, in the age-appropriate way, be able to use the stop it, name it, and claim it. I'll give a lot of credit to our building leaders who had all their meetings planned out for the rest of the year, and we had this opportunity to do this PD and said, okay, we'll stop what we're doing and we'll do this because we think it's important. I think looking at where we are right now in the school year, I'm a little nervous about throwing something else at the students at the end of the school year, but I think it's going to be something that we want to plan very thoughtfully for kind of rolling out to students next year, when we have kind of summer to really, really be intentional about what we're doing. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
One additional question about the stop it, name it, claim it professional development. Clearly, I think there is a need in our community, and I think we all recognize that we want to create an educational environment where students feel safe, where they feel like they belong, an environment that's inclusive and respectful. And so it is important when there are things that happen that don't live up to those expectations that we address them. But we're also talking about kids who make mistakes, and they're there to learn. So in the professional development, I'm curious if you sort of address the difference between calling out versus calling in. They both might be, important components of a response. I'd just like to hear you say a little bit more about the balance, the tension in that respect.
Definitely. We certainly discussed the fact that it's going to look very different from different ages. We're not expecting a first grader to call something out and to use a very specific name to reference what was said. We also talked a little bit about intent versus impact and trying to be mindful of what the intent might be versus the impact that it has, the context about whether or not a comment is said just in a small group of students, if it's said in front of the whole class, helping teachers understand kind of the scope and the magnitude of a comment, that there might be a comment that you pull the student aside and you say, you need to stop that. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't something that was funny. There might be situations where it seems more serious, where it's impacting multiple students in the class, where you actually need to stop your lesson and address it with the class, because if you don't, it could do more damage once the students go out to lunch or to recess and are talking about it more. So I think that's what the scenarios were very helpful for, giving teachers the opportunities to work through the many different ways that this could pop up and figuring out the ways in the moment to be flexible, to kind of assess the impact in the moment and then figuring out how they want to respond to that. Because we did hear a lot of our teachers say one of the things they hear a lot is they'll hear a comment and then the student will say, well, I was just joking. Like, I know him. Like, we were just joking. And that may be the case. And a lot of times our students could just be joking or not have the intentions that it's going to be damaging or received the way it is. But we have to help our students understand that regardless of whether it was a joke or this person, that out of the context of knowing that person or being in the classroom or in the schools, how it could be perceived by somebody else. So I think that's a big piece of it as well.
I think it also is helpful, Goldie, to your point about training the students, because I think obviously there are some egregious incidents where you do need to stop it and address it in the moment, and it's a big deal. But there's also little things that happen, like bullying adds up. So to be able to equip students with some form of this, even just to be like, hey, Denny, that wasn't nice, knock it off. The more kids can do that, the less of a big deal it is when they get called on it, and they're just make it a learning lesson.
I think one of the biggest things I took away from the PD was this idea that when a student walks into a classroom, they're immediately scanning for safety around them in multiple different ways. And in the case of comments, they're waiting to see if they hear something, what the teacher is going to do. Is the teacher going to step in? If the teacher doesn't step in, then that begins to hurt some of the trust they could have in that teacher. So I think that's a big part of what teachers got out of it as well. It's something I know I personally got out of it, is that students are constantly looking around thinking well, what is acceptable in this classroom? What is not? Where's the place where my teacher is going to intervene? Kids too are always kind of testing boundaries to see what's acceptable. So hopefully this allows us to put some parameters in place and make our students, when they're scanning the room for safety, to be able to see those reminders and hear from their teachers that something is a comment is a put down or is insensitive or is harassment or bullying.
All right. Thank you both very much. I think this brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is the superintendent evaluation process. And if I may, I'd like to turn it over to one of the members of our superintendent evaluation subcommittee to give a brief overview of the process. This is really part one of two parts in our school committee meeting, our next joint school committee meeting. I think it's April 26th. We will be hearing more about superintendent evaluation. So, sure, if I may.
So I'm Maggie Sharon, and the Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee is a group made up of one representative from each of the local school districts, and from the region, one from Dover and one from Sherborn. So this year that is Goldie Seffer from Dover School Committee, Amanda Brown from Sherborn School Committee, Judy Miller, and myself from the region. And so our role is really one of aggregation. The laws in Massachusetts are unique because in Massachusetts, the superintendent's evaluation, unlike other employee evaluations, is a public evaluation process. And so the goal of that process is to offer student superintendent feedback in a form that is informative, consistent, and helpful, and it is based on a rubric that is outlined with DESE, and is a standardized rubric used in every school district pretty much across the Commonwealth. We have a unique challenge in Dover-Sherborn because we've agreed to have one superintendent for our 3 school districts. And so in a typical local school district, there would be a person, and all the members would roll their feedback up to a person who would aggregate the stuff. And in our situation, because we are 3 districts, we have to form a subcommittee. So we have met. We had a workshop with the larger joint group earlier this month to kind of go over the process. All of our school committee members have received the rubric and had an opportunity to kind of go through what it looks like, what other evaluations might look like. DESE provides some really sort of helpful, thoughtful videos on their website, which can be helpful. And also, Superintendent McCoy has completed her own self-evaluation and her own analysis on her progress this year, on her goals, on our district goals, and also has worked with us to identify some of the areas of the rubric to really focus on. So right now, each of our members has the document, and they will complete it. It's a numerical rubric. They will turn those into us, and at that point, we're not creating the rankings or whatever. We're really just aggregating and summarizing the data. We will take folks' comments and we will synthesize them, using excerpts from different folks' comments to create an aggregated evaluation that we will share at our next joint meeting. Tonight we've asked for some time to be set aside because one of the other features of the evaluation is the opportunity for individual members of the school committee to offer direct feedback to the superintendent with a written statement, and those statements are shared and become part of the public record of Superintendent McCoy's evaluation and represent the thinking of the individual members. That is not a mandatory part of the evaluation. It's something that we are each welcome to do if we want. There's no obligation to do it, no pressure, but that's the part of the evaluation that we're going to do tonight. And I think there's, a small number of folks who want to make a statement, but we can certainly, at your discretion, open the floor.
Let's do so.
Okay.
Who would like to make a statement concerning
Go
the
around.
superintendent evaluation? Yeah, we can just.
Yeah.
Kate?
Yeah, thanks. Read what I wrote. Superintendent Beth McCoy has made a strong transition into her new role at Dover-Sherborn. Having served as the assistant superintendent for 5 years, also at Dover-Sherborn, she has taken all of the hard work that she has done in developing relationships with staff and parents, knowledge of curriculum and professional development, and her personal past experience as a classroom teacher, and brought it to her current position. Beth has had the benefit of working with 2 seasoned superintendents at her time at DS, and she has learned from them while adding her own personality and skills to the role. Superintendent McCoy has a history of working collaboratively with others. As she finds her footing as superintendent, Beth has continued to listen to many voices and to make sure that all have a seat at the table. She works tirelessly to be transparent and welcoming. Beth has held several open community meetings aimed to educate and answer questions that our community members have. This has not been an easy task. Beth has not been afraid to redirect meeting approaches when trying to meet the needs of as many people as possible. Beth is student-centered, as is evidenced by her continued work on the district's strategic plan, Portrait of a Graduate, and DEI initiatives. Her thoughts and goals are focused on the district's mission to inspire, challenge, and support all students as they discover and pursue their full potential. I look forward to working with Beth for years to come.
I don't have my own statement, but Judy Miller, one of our colleagues on the regional school committee, could not be here tonight because of a family emergency, and she has asked that we read a statement into the record on her behalf. So this is from Judy. It is with great joy and optimism that I thank the chair and members of our school committees for the opportunity to present my comments on Superintendent McCoy's performance this school year. In sum, Superintendent McCoy has done a terrific job. In these remarks, I want to focus on just two areas that, while probably not technically part of the rubric on which we are to evaluate the superintendent, are traits that I have observed over the past nearly 20 years that I have been involved with the district to be crucial to the success of a superintendent. First, Superintendent McCoy's intellect and depth of knowledge, which is demonstrated over and over in her ability to analyze and research any issue, great or small, develop strategies and solutions, and present those in a thorough yet compelling way, is superb. In just about every issue she has tackled this year, including our need for a human resources professional, our reevaluation of our special education program, and of course, our DEI work, Superintendent McCoy has leveraged her knowledge and experience and engaged outside experts to provide subject matter expertise, which enhances the results for our districts. Seriously, every time I have read a report or an update from Superintendent McCoy, I am bowled over by the breadth of her intellect, insights, and strategic recommendations. We are truly blessed to have someone at our helm who is so incredibly smart, dedicated, and capable. Second, Superintendent McCoy's ability to communicate with grace, calm, and intelligence, both verbally and in writing, is unsurpassed. As we all know, our DEI work this year is new and courageous. With any new endeavor in a public school system, questions and debate are natural and actually necessary and great. Superintendent McCoy has embraced this endeavor, reaching out to everyone in the community to foster understanding of all points of view and to educate our community on the district's evidence-based approach to our DEI work. She's done a magnificent job in this endeavor. In addition, her day-to-day communication skills are awesome. On a very micro level, she has kept our communities in the loop on all issues, great and small, on a real-time basis. In October, I read her first newsletter communication to the community, and again, I was bowled over by her ability to communicate timely and relevant information in a way that made you want to read on. I have also observed Superintendent McCoy communicate in more challenging situations, and she has exhibited intelligence, grace, and caring that far surpass expectations. Beth, Judy, have enjoyed watching you blossom this year, and I so look forward to working with you in the future to reach all of our collective goals. Well done.
Great. Our superintendent, Beth McCoy, came into this year with a strong vision and plan for listening and learning as part of her entry process. She has made significant progress toward our district goals, setting a strategic path, unpacking the equity audit, and supporting all students, and continued the positive momentum of DS schools. While there are many accomplishments I could celebrate tonight, I wanted to take this opportunity to commend Ms. McCoy on her exemplary work on one standard in particular, Standard 3, Family and Community Engagement. This standard reads, and this is from the state rubric, the education leader promotes the learning and growth of all students and the success of all staff through effective partnerships with families, community organizations, and other stakeholders that support the mission of the district and its schools. This standard was aligned with Ms. McCoy's and the district goals this year and has been a priority for the leadership team, particularly around the equity audit and our continuing DEI work. Ms. McCoy has built a strong team of leaders, including bringing on DS and METCO alum Dr. Carlos Hoyt as a consultant. She has reached out to a variety of stakeholders, meeting them wherever they are, in person and virtually. She has been both proactive in her outreach and community education efforts and responsive to feedback from the community about their questions and concerns. Her response to the recent anti-Semitic hate incident at the high school was timely and strong. She is an excellent communicator who seeks to bring people together to ensure that DS can succeed in its mission to inspire, challenge, and support all students as they discover and pursue their full potential. In the state's superintendent evaluation rubric, an exemplary rating for any standard suggests that Ms. McCoy's practice could serve as a model statewide. Indeed, Ms. McCoy's thoughtful and thorough work in communication and community engagement does serve as a model for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a statement? All right. Thank you.
If folks who read statements could make sure that their the electronic copy of their statement gets forwarded to Amy Davis, who is our note taker, and that way it can become part of the record. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So more to come on
Yep.
superintendent evaluation at our next meeting, which is April 26th. And do note that that meeting will be held on a Wednesday. It's a departure from the usual Tuesday because the Sherborn Town meeting will be taking place that Tuesday. So we are shifting a day, meeting on Wednesday, April 26th. All right, with that, let's move on to the consent agenda, which consists of the joint school committee meeting minutes from January 17th, 2023, and the joint school committee workshop minutes of March 8th, 2023.
Not for us.
Are there any questions or comments concerning the consent agenda? All right, I had a couple notes on the January 17th minutes. Just note that we need to correct the spelling of Goalie Saper's name in the vote concerning the security camera policy and the vote regarding the consent agenda.
Okay.
We should be consistent in our spelling of Connolly bus, and there was a typo, lower cost, not lover. So, maybe spicier minutes. All right. So, any other questions, comments? All right. So we will vote by committee. Is there a motion from the Dover School Committee to approve the consent agenda?
There's a question about
What is
whether
question?
Goalie's name is.
Sarah, is correct. Which one? The one on top of the page, or?
Oh no, in there's the listing of the vote
Okay.
concerning the security camera policy, and then during the vote concerning the consent agenda.
Okay.
We'll fix it in those places.
Oh, first name.
Oh,
Okay.
the first name. DSC motion.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, so is there a motion from the Dover School Committee to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thanks, Colleen. Is there a second?
Oh, is there a second?
Thank you, Colleen. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All right, motion passes unanimously. We'll wait for you. We'll wait for you at the region. Going back to
I haven't been doing it before. How's the connection tonight?
All right. Amanda, do you want to take it away for Sherborn?
Could I please have a motion from Sherborn to approve the consent agenda as amended?
Kristen Everly, so moved.
Thank you, Kristen. Second.
So I was not in attendance on January.
That's okay. Thank you, Gwen.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Dennis. Any discussion? No? Okay. All in favor? All right. Motion passes.
Can I have a motion from the region to accept the consent agenda as amended, thoughtfully amended by Sarah?
All right. Mark is
Thank you, Mark.
Second.
Lynn, thank you. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. We're good.
All right. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of our agenda this evening. Shall we adjourn by unanimous consent?
I think we can.
All right, all in
you.
favor? Thank you, everyone.
7:43.
Adjourned at 7:43. Thank you.